happily ever after. Leading up to that, I should probably mention that the space program in the United States was in fact a developmental type program. We started out very simply with a one-man vehicle, and the very first guy to go into space was Al Shepard, and he went up to 65 miles and comes back. A little bit like Virgin Galactic is selling today for a couple $100,000. I think you could do that. They may be cheaper now, I don't know. But you can get a ticket on Virgin Galactic. You go up to 65 miles straight up and then straight back down. That is not in orbit, folks. Not orbital. You've got to understand that. I'm not sure how private industry is going to do that. Anyway, and then the Jiminy program came along. Once we got kind of the space business under our belt, we found that, as a matter of fact, when we go into space, we don't die. That we can survive in space. And Gordon Cooper, as a matter of fact, proved to us that you could survive 7 days in space on the Mercury program. Then we got the Jiminy program going. That was a two-man program. And the purpose of that was to identify, develop, and demonstrate all of the things that we need. If we're going to have to go into lunar orbit with two vehicles and then recover them, we got to prove that we can do certain things. One of them is you've got to be able to get those two vehicles together somehow. That's called rendezvous. Bringing them together, and then the last part of a rendezvous is where they dock, a hard dock, so that they can transfer, we can transfer people from one vehicle to the other. Basically, the rendezvous and dock procedure was developed in the Jiminy program in Earth orbit. That procedure works anywhere. If it's a planetary system and the gravity is what we think it is and all that kind of stuff, there are no unknowns, there are no funny ones in there. Okay, so we proved that we could do that. Another thing was long-term flight, because we knew that going to the moon, the way we're going to do it, and going into lunar orbit and then landing and all that, it's going to take some time. Basically, our flight was 2 weeks long, and I think it was as long as any of them that went to the moon. It's about the same for all those flights. So we got to find out, can you guys survive for 2 weeks in space? Jiminy program took care of that, because they did just fine for 14 days. The Jiminy is a very, very small spacecraft. There's not much room in there to move around, but they survived for 2 weeks. The last thing that really needed to be developed in a Jiminy program was this thing called spacewalks. A spacewalk is where the astronaut gets in his spacesuit or full pressure suit, he gets outside the spacecraft and he does something. Now, the purpose of that was, something he was going to do was go from one vehicle to another.